Awesome. If anybody is uncomfortable with recording, I suggest you shut off your camera because we will be saving this for future ministry purposes and sharing it with people within our MK chat community. So I work with Compass Ministries. It is a nonprofit for missionary kids and missionaries and their families. We do pastoral counseling and some mental health counseling, marital counseling, and so on and so forth. I help with the adult missionary kids that come and move here. I am currently, bit by bit, taking over the leadership role of a group home that we have for missionary kid girls. I'm staying in the house right now. So that's what I do. And I work with Dennis Bailey and Spencer Clower, and we run MK Connect. We have MK Chats, which are Facebook chat groups that if you are not a part of, you can email us and we can get you signed up. We also run MK Gatherings, which is what this is, a video conference where we all get to see each other's faces and chit chat. Am I missing anything? Bailey or Dennis?
The MK journaling.
Yes, MK. How could I forget? We also do an MK journaling chat. What that is we put people together in groups of 3 or 4 people. Then like I form those chat groups, but then I remove myself so that way you guys can just chat on your own. And then in your emails, once a week for month increments, you get a study question and a Bible verse to study. And then the chat group that's formed, you guys can talk about it together. So like a Bible study. We do a 2-way journaling method, and that involves just a method of talking with God. We did a video explaining it. So if you wanted to sign up for MK journaling, we can send you that video and that information. Yes. What else, Dennis? What else am I missing? I think that's it, right? Yay. All right. So I will pray for us to officially get started, and then maybe we can all just do a quick introduction. So yeah, I'll get to that in a sec. So Jesus, I thank you so much for this community, and that we get to be together and talk. And even though a lot of us live very, very far apart from each other, we can all connect over some common blessings and struggles and be there as support for each other. I thank you that Cindy Duff can join us today to share some of the wisdom that you've given her, and ask that you would guide her words and that it would be a blessing to all of us today. In your name I pray, amen. All right, so who would like to introduce themselves? Come on, I went first.
I'm supposed to introduce myself when I start my topic, so I'm going to pass.
It's true. We'll save the best for last.
I'll go ahead. I'm Dennis Bailey. I live in Brazil. I do ministry here with different stuff. Sometimes I'm still trying to figure out what I do actually. But anyways, I help with Compass Ministries creating this online community. This has been a fantastic experience for me. I don't see MKs for 1,000 miles, so this is the closest I get to MKs. And we work with the Native Americans in Brazil and do different online courses and ministry to help teens work with indigenous children. And like this month is Children's Day, so we had a couple of teens from different states in Brazil. So that was fun. So that was a highlight of the year for me. And we also do other activities, but I'll leave it for another time.
I'll introduce myself. I just realized my name says Megan Larson. That's actually my maiden name. I'm Megan Gardner. I grew up in Niger, West Africa, US and Canada. And my husband Peter grew up in US and Taiwan. and we're now missionaries in South Africa with our 3 kids.
Good job.
My name's Nathan. I grew up in Kenya, East Africa, and currently I'm in Ohio, and I've been doing a little bit of programming and those type of things here, and that's my job.
My name is Spencer, and I lived in Brazil for about 18 years, and I've 5 to 6 years ago moved to Florida, and I lived in one of the houses that Rebecca lives in now, but at the time it was for men. And I work for Compass now, full-time in the administrative office. I also help with the MK chats, the MK Connect that Dennis and Rebecca also work with. And yeah, that's it.
I believe that's everyone, right? I can't see everybody at the same time.
Yes, you got everyone.
Alrighty. So today our guest speaker is Miss Cindy Duff, and I will let her introduce herself. I can tell you this woman is phenomenal and has been working for a long time to help us MKs and TCKs find our way in the American craziness. So Cindy, I will pass it off to you.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate it. As Rebecca mentioned, I'm the founder of Compass Ministries, founded this ministry 10 years ago, and I'm currently the director of pastoral counseling. I've been married for 42 years, and I have 4 adult children, and I'm not a cross-cultural worker, nor am I an MK or TCK. And so that often makes people wonder why I'm so passionate about MKs and TCKs. So I'll just tell you why. When I was growing up, most of my friends were TCKs because my father was a leader in a mission sending organization, and so all my friends that lived there were MKs, TCKs. I did live abroad for an entire year in an immersion program in France, and I did 2 missionary internships, one in West Africa, in Mali, and then one in Micronesia. But I've always been what I like to call an IIP, which is an internationally interested person. And when one goes to North America, that's who you have to look for, is people who have curiosity about the world and are not totally culturally encapsulated in the North American culture. And we're hard to find, but there are some of us. And as a result of being an IIP, or an internationally interested person, I've always been very close friends with MKs and TCKs. I trained as a clinical counselor, but for the last 10 years, my sole focus has been on the well-being of global worker families and their children. I'm trained as a play therapist and have done play therapy with the little ones who maybe are having some stress from cultural transition or moving about or being in a car seat too much, going and raising friends. So it's the kind of thing that I've been doing. And I work with the global workers themselves. So as Rebecca already told you, Compass Ministries is a multifaceted organization. You probably already know about MK Connect, the online community, and all the various things that they offer through the MK Connect. And Rebecca also mentioned the Compass House for young adult women, helping them in a 1 or a 2-year program in transitioning to the US culture and launching as an adult. We hope to open a MK Compass House for men sometime in the next year. So we're praying about that. We also have a Plus Compass group here in the Tampa Bay area. It's a group of about 16 to 18 young adult MKs, TCKs that live here, and they get together for discipleship, Bible study, worship, mutual encouragement, fun, all that kind of stuff. So we also provide pastoral counseling from age 4, MKs age 4, up into adults of any age. We do individual, couples, and whole family debriefs, a 2-day debrief with cross-cultural workers to help them reflect on their experiences in ministry and then to look forward to what God might be doing. We also just do individual pastoral counseling for individual issues or marriage issues. We have a pornography recovery group here in Tampa Bay, in the Tampa area, for cross-cultural workers that may have a struggle in that area. We run the Southeast Regional MK Retreat, which is for young adult MKs, age 18 to 30. And that's every year in February. And right now, early bird registration just opened up. So if you want to come and save some money, now's the time to register. Go to our website, www.compass-ministries.org. .net. We also do a spring break retreat and a number of other things. So we're busy, and there's a number of us on the staff. Well, today what we'd like to talk about is one of the biggest challenges that are faced by MK and TCKs who are coming back to their passport culture, if that's North America, coming back to North America to live. And that biggest challenge, I think, is connecting to monocultural peers. I hear over and over again how hard it is to get to know North Americans, and that there just seem to be a lot of obstacles. And some of those obstacles may be that you may have spent the major portion of your developmental years maybe in a collectivistic culture that's very community-oriented, relationship-oriented. And when you come to North America, you're coming to a highly individualistic culture that values privacy, punctuality, where you have to make appointments if you want to be with someone, visit someone. And that's really different from a collectivistic culture where it's drop in and you live in community. And if you're used to that, it can really lead to a lot of loneliness and just struggles in connecting with people. The other thing that I hear often from TCKs and MKs is that the monoculturals of North America seem very shallow. So, they say, what's with all the talk about the weather? Why are North Americans always talking about the weather or always talking about sports? Why is that all that they talk about? And so I think we're going to decipher why that is and what it means. And I say the seeming shallowness because monoculturals are not shallow, but they do have a different way of going deep than what TCKs have. So the contrast in how MKs and TCKs make friends is a product primarily of the high mobility in the MK and TCK communities. And I don't have to tell you, but people who are living cross-culturally in an expatriate community or at an international school or on a mission compound somewhere, people are constantly coming and going. People come in for short-term service projects. People leave on furlough, come back, you leave on furlough. So there's this constant churning in the community. And that constant churning produces a style of how to make friendships that is very, very adaptive for the high mobility of the TCK MK community. But it's very different from the way monoculturals make friends because they have no high mobility. The vast majority of monoculturals are going to live in the same state, at least, maybe even the same town for all of their developmental years. And so they have not grown up in an environment where people are coming and going and coming and going. And so that produces a different kind of pattern for how to make friends. So I've graphed it out here, and hopefully you can see it. But right here, this line represents the depth of the relationship. So up here is a shallow relationship. You just met somebody. And here's the depth of relationship where you have a lot of self-disclosure and, sharing with each other. So a monocultural is going to very, very gradually share deeper and deeper things over time. This is the axis for time here. They're going to share very, very slowly. They may even go at a very superficial level for a while before they even start down this path. of getting to know you. And the reason is they've got all the time in the world. They're not going anywhere, and neither are you in their mind. And so they like to be cautious. They like to observe you for a while, see if if you're similar at all before they invest in the relationship. So there's this slow, going deeper and deeper and deeper. So as you can see, though, monocultures do eventually get deep. Just takes time. Third culture kids, though, MKs especially, often develop this relationship style that goes deep immediately, because after all, we don't have much time. So if we're going to be friends, we better get at it, right? And so they tend to go deep and find out all there is to know about each other. And then if they find that they have a lot in common, then they will be friends and start hanging out at this deep level. Okay, so it's a completely different style of making friends, and both styles are very fine. They make sense in the environment in which a person lives. It's just the problem is that when you move from a multicultural environment, which has the high mobility and people coming and going all the time, to a monocultural North American environment, then the going deep fast strategy of the TCK is counterproductive. And the reason for that is that monoculturals have found that most people who share a lot right away are not healthy people, that they tend to be clingy or dependent or whatever. And so monoculturals over their lifetime have developed a strategy of staying away from people that share too much too fast. Because if a monocultural does that, then it usually means that they are a dependent kind of personality. Not always, but often it does. And so they will immediately kind of say, back off and not want to go deeper. It scares them off. Of course, the TCK is just doing what they've always done, and it works really well in a multicultural environment, but it doesn't work so well with monoculturals who have been in the same place their whole life. In North America, we even have a term for this called oversharing. And so North Americans will even talk about how somebody overshares and that it's not a good thing. So one of the things that we kind of have to unlearn is that the dump truck kind of approach of, I meet somebody, I dump everything out to see what we have in common so we can connect. And we need to stop that, and we need to go in a much more gradual way. So here is an onion, okay? And the onion this one has 6 layers, and it just so happens that there are 6 layers for communication, all right? And the most outer layer is cliche talk. Things like, how are you? Or, so hot weather we're having, huh? And that's cliche talk. Just super surface, nothing personal about it at all. And that's the way we break the ice. And you know what? North Americans aren't the only ones that talk in cliches. For instance, I know when I was in West Africa, everyone I met, I had to ask, how's your spouse? How are your children? How's your cow? How are your fields? And they would respond with torote or peace. It wasn't a real answer. It was just, the cliche. How are you? Only you would have to ask about every facet of their life. And for every facet, they would say, peace, 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 everything's fine. So it's still cliche. There's no real self-disclosure. And every culture has this cliche kind of talk. It just happens in North America, the weather is usually the cliche we talk about the most. Or we say, how are you? But we don't really mean it. We don't really want a real answer. We just want you to say, fine, fine, everything's fine. Another cliche conversation that's very common to monoculturals is to say, where are you from? And of course, that is not a surface question for a TCK. That requires, some explanation and a lot of self-disclosure and all of that. So that can be a quandary for TCKs, because it's supposed to be a surface question and it ends up going deep, at least to the 3rd or 4th level. And so that's a problem for TCKs. The second level in is reporting level. And the reporting level, You converse about things like sports and TV shows and movies that you saw and, factual, non-personal information. And this is a deeper level of talking to someone, but it still is not revealing anything really about yourself. The third level in, however, is where you share your opinions. It's the judgment level, and you share your opinions and beliefs about these non-personal events. So you might talk about the results of an election, but then if you say what you think about the results of that election, now you've gone into the third level of communication. The fourth level is emotional level, and that's where we're sharing about our feelings about things, stories that have impacted us, those kinds of things. And then the fifth level is self-disclosure, which allows you to talk about, embarrassing things, funny stories from your past that reveal a lot about you, like your family and experiences you had growing up and that kind of thing. And then the very deepest layer is deeply held fantasies and fears. And we don't usually talk on that level with anyone except our very closest friend or our spouse, something like that. So why is this important? I'm going to talk about the onion a couple of times, but the first thing is I want to tell you how to monocultural typically uses the onion of relationship building. Oh, by the way, I use an onion because relationships can cause you to cry quite a bit. Okay, the first layer of just cliche talking is how you talk to acquaintances, people that you've just met or people who see infrequently or that you pass on the street. And so monoculturals stay on that first layer of cliche quite often. The next level of relationship for a monocultural is what I call an activity companion, someone that you do things with, like go to the movies or play tennis or, play football or, soccer as we call it here, together. It's where you hang out and have fun together. And for that, you might talk about the, things going on in the world or movies that you've seen, that kind of thing. And you would talk level 2. You wouldn't really get to talking about your opinions about things or your emotions about things that have happened until you had decided to become a friend with this person. And that would be level 3 and 4 is reserved for people that you've decided to make a friend. And it can take a monocultural months of hanging out with you as an activity companion before they decide that they want to invest in a friendship. And that, if you just come back to the US, that can seem like an eternity, those months while monoculturals are deciding whether they want to invest in you as a friend and go deeper. And then a monocultural would go to 5 and 6, the self-disclosure and deeply held fears and fantasies with only close friends. Now, the TCKs, on the other hand, have a tendency to go deeper, even with acquaintances. They might just meet somebody and go from cliche to reporting on things that are happening. They might talk about world events and things like that, see if somebody has any international interest, right? And then if they decide this person is interesting and they go deep, they start to become their friend, they will immediately go to sharing my opinions and my feelings at levels 3 and 4 about things that are happening. The interesting thing about TCKs is that they're going to decide to become a friend to somebody and go deeper in the sharing, and then they'll hang out with them. Why hang out with somebody if you don't know if you're going to become their friend, which makes sense, right? So you must become a friend first before they become an activity acquaintance. So there's fewer steps here. You start as an acquaintance, then become a friend, and you hang out with them. And then finally, a few of those friends you will share in the very center or core of your being on self-disclosure and your deeply held fantasies and fears. And those would be your closest friends. So as you can see, the style of making a friend is different between the two. Now, one thing that I advise for monoculturals is, to avoid the dump truck and just share a little bit at a time about your past. And one way that you can do that is when you're telling your stories to say when it happened, not where. Because the moment you talk to a monocultural about, oh, you know, when I was in high school, our high school class went to the French Riviera for our school trip. As soon as you say French Riviera, they just, you know, glaze over because they don't know what the French Riviera is like. They can't understand it. And so they kind of lose interest because of the lack of anything that they can connect with. But if you say, my senior year, our class went to the beach for our class trip, well, that they can understand. They've probably been to the beach themselves somewhere, and it won't feel so foreign. It helps them connect with you. So if you say when and not where, it can help. Another thing is if you think things are going well in the relationship, you can move in just one layer in communication, go one layer deeper, and see if the person follows you in. If they don't follow you in and respond or reciprocate with the deeper communication, then go back up to a more superficial level of communication and stay with them. But you can test the waters by going in just one level. Now, don't jump 3 levels. You need to go in one level at a time. If they go in with you, that one level in, then after a while, you can try one level deeper, all right? And but I would take your time with it because monoculturals, like I said, can get scared off if we go deep too fast. Or you can end up being in a relationship with someone who's a very dependent person who ends up like taking over your life and can make it very, very difficult for you to enforce healthy boundaries in that situation. So these are just some of the things that we've seen and what works, what doesn't work. And I'm going to leave some time now for questions or comments that you may have from your experiences of trying to develop relationships with monoculturals who've never left, you know, their country or their state or even their city, and the struggles maybe you've had of connecting. Any questions, comments?
Questions, comments, concerns?
I think the topic was really good. It's just kind of brought some light into my own thinking and understanding. I had already perceived some of this stuff, but I have never heard it articulated in a conversation format. So this is a lot of stuff that's kind of like, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, to be honest. And the dump truck method, I have noticed that I've kind of reverted to shoveling, trying to just do it shovel by shovel. But even then, it can get impatient. And so, anyways, it's still a struggle. So I really appreciated listening to the conversation and learning from this important topic. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome. Yes, thank you for your comment. So how did you find a connection with someone that initially you thought you had nothing in common with? How'd you do that?
Hey, talking to me or talking to Megan? I kind of.
It was the person who just messaged us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's talking about Megan. For those who may have not seen it, Megan wrote, I think you are so right that time is a key element. I've become friends with people I initially had nothing in common with simply because we spent time together over and over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, as a monocultural, I can say that is true. And I did have high mobility in my life because my father was a church planting.
Yeah. Real quick, Rebecca, can you read the comment? Because it's being recorded, but unfortunately the recording doesn't show what's being typed. So if we're talking on top of it, just help the flow of the thought.
Okay.
Awesome. So Megan replied with, I guess that's the experience of a monocultural.
Mm-hmm. And I have some of the same struggles that TCKs have because I moved constantly throughout my life because of my dad's ministry. And yeah, it was a lonely time. It took me, even though I never left the United States in my developmental years, it was lonely because I never stayed long enough to really make any friendships. And then when I did stay somewhere long enough, it did take a long time, about 5 or 6 years before I really connected with people on a deeper level. So yeah, it is a monocultural experience, but they've got their whole lifetime to build relationships. Whereas those of us with high mobility, we don't have that much time.
Anyone else? Any other questions?